hairstyle because. And the reason will become
I think we lost Anupam. He will join back. Yeah. Can you all hear me? I think we've just lost Anupam. So he will join back. Don't worry. He'll just join back. He had, I think, an unstable internet. He should join back. Just 2 minutes, guys. Just hang in there. Yeah. Are you all enjoying what he's talking about? Are you relating to what he's saying? Yeah. Yeah. So as he said, your portfolio is actually your personality. It is not what somebody has taught you. It's not what you have drawn for somebody. It is only your personality and you coming out in your portfolio. Yeah. Oh, Lakshmi and Anupam joined back.
Yes, ma'am, he's joining back.
Can you guys hear me?
Ma'am, can you hear me?
Hi guys,
Yes,
can you all hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am, you're audible.
He's joining back, ma'am. He's joining back.
Well, so I see some of the students have joined now, and people are live also. So for your information, you will be having all the insight and input from about the portfolio. And many of you are already participating in this session now. And I want these things like how our team is participating, how I see Gayatri, Malvika, the
Anupam
way.
is back. Anupam.
Yeah. So Anupam sir will continue now. Over to you, sir.
Yeah, hi guys, I'm back. For some reason, Zoom just crashed on me. I'm not too sure why, but I hope my screen's back on your screen. Okay, cool. So where was I? So anything that you cover on your Insta is also perhaps capturing the essence of how you spend your day. And those images are superb thumbnails to put in your portfolio. Really talks about your journey, and the timeline is irrelevant. Now, there are few questions you must ask yourself even before becoming a designer. Or for that matter of fact, any space, any career you take on, we all kind of start to seek the bigger question, the bigger answer to what is it that we want to really impact in our lives through our work. Whatever work that might be. For our parents, obviously it's parenting and impacting the education and the development of their children, But what is it that you're trying to impact through your work? Can you possibly get a clarity on that? And for each one of us, it's different. You can't copy paste it. You really can't. No matter how hard you try, you can't fake it. So work on that question. What is it that you're really trying to impact? Because that is what your portfolio should reflect. And that just kind of takes you to another question. What do you really truly care about? Do you care about solving problems? Do you care about making people confident by putting on clothes that really add a good posture to them? Are you improving their confidence? Are you helping them through maybe intervention which solves a disability? Would you look at impacting environment? Does your work impact environment? So the deeper intentions really need to come out here. What are your deeper intentions in life as a person? Now, these are just key highlights of where to really begin building a portfolio. And you can't really copy paste when you start telling your life story. You talk about what inspires you. You look at your Insta, you look at your images, or you look at your own wardrobe. You'll be able to spot patterns, the things that are inspiring you. You look at your wall behind you. I mean, behind Malvika, I can see post-its being formed, which kind of suggests to me that making life more systematic, more sequential, more organized is what she's kind of building upon. Look around you, observe. There are a lot of things that are inspiring you day in, day out. If you can't pinpoint what inspires you, I think it's time that you start observing those patterns. Now, a portfolio is also there to voice your opinions, your ideas, no matter how sketchy they might be, how stupid they might seem at the beginning. And at the same time, how crazy they might be. But you got to voice it. One of the most important aspects of a portfolio is your process. Everything has a process. Starting from us growing up as a child to an adult, that's a process. You taking on a project and stitching a dress is a process. Picking the right set of things in your house as home decor, going to a shop, negotiating, buying the best stuff. It's all a process. Can you start noting those down? And you'll be surprised that there are so many systems working behind those processes. You've got to visualize and you've got to put that into your work. Now, that can be creatively put through visuals. You can talk about it. You can make videos about it as well. Whatever medium works for you. Because at the end of the day, it is your story. Nobody else can dictate it for you. And which is why it's important that whatever observations you're going to start doing from today onwards, and if not, that you've not already done that, yes, of course, I'm sure you've done that. Put your analysis into it. Put little post-its into it. What came out of it? You painted a wall. Did it come out matte? Did it come out glossy? That's an annotation. What did you intend to do? You saw an old, wise woman on the road. She couldn't walk. That was an observation. What was the analysis? The analysis was perhaps she was struggling to walk, and there is a solution to that. Perhaps you want to develop something that can help her walk. Talk about your ideas from these analyses. Now, many of you guys are into animation, like I said. Now, in terms of animations, let me put out a very simple analogy. What I used to do was I used to look at animals all the time, how they used to behave. Right from the movement, their biomechanics of the body, how they talk to you, how they express, how they bark. When they're aggressive, what is their expression? If you can start to collate them in whatever way you feel like, the best way, obviously, as a designer or a creative would be visual. Start analyzing those. You want to take a picture down? Take a picture, print it out, sketch over it. You'll see the smaller nuances in it. How that dog from being calm became alert. How that dog suddenly became aggressive. And there's a change of expression. That transition is so useful in animation. You'll be surprised that it's all around us. And same goes for humans as well, because we are such an expressive being. Now, needless to say, if you keep it simple, keep it clean and easy to read, I guess it goes without saying, whosoever is trying to view that and understand it will not have trouble understanding and comprehending it. That should be your key intent. Because if there are things which are complex, how do you work around simplifying that complexity? Let's get into the format of things. Now, many of you guys obviously have sketchbooks. Now, they can be digital. If you're a Wacom tablet user or an iPad user, I'm sure you've got a lot of those digital artworks as well. But then you've also got sketchbooks, physical, traditional sketchbooks. So they can be of various sizes, dimensions. But that is the key to building a portfolio. And that's where it starts from. If you don't have a sketchbook, then I guess you haven't explored, is what you're telling to the interviewer. And if you haven't explored, perhaps you haven't really lived life as a designer. It's like you got an idea and you just vomited it out. It doesn't happen like that, right? Even a tailor master, when you go to the tailor master to create a dress, he'll give you options, right? He'll give you variations. He'll give you, okay, you can embellish, you can tweak, you can perhaps make it of a different kind or a genre or a category. You can make it longer, taller, howsoever. That's ideation. You need the sketchbook to begin with, no matter what size, dimension. It can be a tissue paper as well. I used to sketch on tissue papers when I couldn't find my sketchbook next to me. And I used to keep that tissue paper in my sketchbook later on, sometimes even staple it in. Now then, how many of you guys have done visual mood boards? Let me just ask you that. Collages in a more simpler term. Malvika says yes. Can we get Ananya says yes. I guess most of you guys have delved with visual mood boards. I think your journey can be mapped in a similar fashion. Your likes, your dislikes, your life on a daily mundane basis, your routines can all be mapped in a simple visual. You can have as many. In fact, in your portfolio, you should have sleeves of these almost every now and then to kind of just break the monotony. When you move from one project to the other, you can fill those spaces with what you were doing between those times or during those times or before the start of that project. Give it a deep dive. Give the other viewers an insight into your life. You know, be it a sketch, be it something that you might have bought for yourself, any object, maybe you've dressed in a certain way, maybe there was a game that you played on a PS4. All of those things matter. But make sure you have this composition as an art piece. It's a very powerful tool. Your composition of the visual mood board is perhaps one of the most effective ways of making your portfolio stand out. And we're all looking at it because those thumbnails are all these interesting bits and pieces of your life. We talked about sketchbooks. Obviously, there has to be an effort that needs to go in. While it's okay to be rough and sketchy, don't shy away from curating it. And by curating means compositing it in a certain layout that appeals to the viewer. Whether there are scraps of work in progress materials lying on your table, staple them. If you cut out a piece of stockings to use it as a mesh, plug it in. If you have had studio time, if you've been doing something in the kitchen, put those photos in there. Any craft activity, even if it is unfinished. We want to see your intentions, quite honestly, which then obviously becomes your process. And it can be as random. Let's get into a slightly more specific element of how you should break down your portfolios in its components. Now, ideally, if you ask me, and this question comes up quite a lot, so I thought maybe put it right in the beginning, and that is, what should be the size or dimension or format of my portfolio? So back in my days, I remember I used to carry an A0 bag. That bag itself used to cost around $3,000-4,000 bucks. And it was hard enough to carry it around with A1 and A0 sheets. Today, you've got the digital mediums to support that. So obviously, you can have multiple ways of sending your portfolio. I've spent quite a lot of money simply just to courier stuff. At least that has been now dealt with through the digital mediums. So ideally, A3 size works really well in a landscape format. It really gives you the breathing space, just like a wide screen laptop or a computer screen monitor would allow you to view things on a sort of wider frame. So use that as an added advantage. Because obviously, if you've got a portrait sketch, let's say, you're not just going to put your portrait sketch right away. You can have that, but alongside, you can talk about it. It doesn't need to be in isolation. You can talk about what mediums you used, whether it was a charcoal pencil or whether it was a Staedtler pencil of a certain thickness. That shows the tool sets that you used in that process, but for a reason. Because I could well ask you, why did you not use a gray tone? Why did you go about using a red pencil all through and through? Maybe you have an answer for that. That makes you think. The choices you make. Also, try sequencing your projects in such a way that you're only putting in the best work that you have. And there might be a lot of other work that you've done as experiments. You can carry that as a supporting portfolio or a supporting document. But you can really filter out stuff on the basis of what your passion is, what you really want to take on as a career pathway, and also things that you really spend time doing, and you really believe that the work was quality work. So shortlist those. Do not have more than 5 to 8 projects. Be as funneled and sharpen your portfolio as much as possible. And all this can be compiled within 15 slides. So when we look at portfolios from graduates, we look at portfolios that are sort of so sharp that you can go through the entire work in 8 slides. Because that's the kind of attention span you would have as an interviewer. Anything more than that is asking for time, which is precious. So if you can't grab attention with 3 top projects in your portfolio, I think you're trying too hard, which is why sometimes we often say less is more. And often or not, that becomes a reality, because just stay focused on less, but quality. Now, coming to the digital side of things, again, there are times when we get these PowerPoints or PDF formats, Acrobat Reader formats, which are like 40 MB, 30 MB. You don't want to be doing that. Because a lot of colleges, companies, their email systems don't allow that kind of data to be downloaded. In fact, it doesn't even reach their outbox or inbox, simply because it's too heavy a file. So somehow you've got to optimize the portfolio size between 3 to 4 megabytes. That's how ideal it should be. Nothing beyond that. Anything beyond that is simply asking for trouble. And then, of course, there are a lot of platforms now which we'll talk about, where you can simply create your web link. You can upload all the images, but mind you, that should not give you the the liberty to kind of just go about putting as many images. Again, limit it to the best work possible. Now, this is somewhat an insight into what kind of format are we looking at in terms of industry, college, and any of those experts who are going to interview your folios for your admissions. Now, again, this is something which is pretty much needless to say. Tell a story. And we talked about telling your journey. Your journey is a beautiful story. You've got to craft it. Now, you can choose a format that is comfortable to tell that story. It can be a video file as well. We make Insta Reels all the time. Why not use that as an added advantage or as a tool to tell a story or a series of stories? Now, we've all got different comfort levels, so that's something which is very individual to us. Then let's talk about the flow of components. Once we've got our formats ready, we know, that's the target. That's how big it should be. That's how it should look. We definitely need a cover page like any other book. We definitely need a content page. And that content page should definitely also have all the projects listed with a little pic, little thumbnail, little headshot. It helps identify. And you can keep it crisp and clean as well. So if it's like a wedding dress you did, have a little sneak peek image of that on the content page. And of course, number your pages. We often forget that. We always forget that. Now, how do you introduce your portfolio? You could pick a picture of yourself to start with a little bio about it. And like I said, tell a tale, tell a story about yourself. Don't just say, I am this, my name is this, I do this, my interests, my expressions, these are my interests, end of story, full stop. That perhaps is a very, very boring way of addressing someone about yourself as a creative. Craft it. Even if you need to craft it, recraft it. Talk about achievements you've had. Talk about competitions you entered in. That shows your intentions pretty clearly right at the beginning. It's almost like a first impression. And then we come to the actual content of what really comprises of your work in progress, or comprises of the finished work that you've built around a certain design discipline. So if you're looking at fashion design, obviously you'll be bringing out the best of works that you have in fashion, alongside perhaps more peripherals. You might have done accessories also. But once you've selected those projects that you've done, please have a short description about them. You can also have a short description in the content alongside the project image. That sometimes also is a good way to address. Now, we often forget to title our projects as well. Have quirky titles. You just cannot say this is a wedding dress, or this is a cell phone, or this is a lamp. If a lamp has a personality, give it a personality. Give it a name that infuses that personality you're talking about. title your projects. Now, any image that you put in there, annotate it with a note. And a lot of people forget this. Even in their college years, they do not annotate your images. So how do you expect the other person to actually understand what are you trying to tell? Because you're not there physically. You can put a little digital post-it, Photoshop it in there, or you can literally put an actual post-it in there if you want, if you have to, and then scan that in. Now, coming to the most important part, which is lots and lots of doodles of whatever creative design discipline you want to get in. If you don't have doodles and sketchy ideas, we or anyone out there who's looking at that portfolio can see your creative side. You might have good ideas in your head, but that needs to be translated out in some way or the other. And they can be as sketchy as ridiculous, but when you go out explaining them a little bit, I think that serves the purpose. Now, your body of work, especially for those who, who have been sort of been training themselves to apply to colleges, must have done a lot of portraits, a lot of landscape art. Some of you guys must have done a lot of craft work as well. Some of you guys do stuff as hobbies, like stitching something or cooking, model making. Some of you guys might already be making apps. I know some of you guys at this hour are thinking about, oh, what if we can improvise the Zomato app? It's so cluttered. Do it, put that in. You find a problem, take that, doodle it, plug that in. You might have done origami in school, or you might have done some paper models in school. Any crazy experiments that you thought were creative. Any group activities you did to solve a problem. Even, let's just say, you entered a competition to save the planet. That's a group work. Can you put that in? You love makeup. Put that in. Some of you guys might be playing around with robotics or technology related gadgets, playing around with sensors. Plug that in as well. And mind you, your work in progress is more important than the final piece. Because if you're already so good, there's no need for you to come to college. And I'm saying it in a very subtle way, obviously, because you're going to college to learn and enhance your skills, right? And to explore. So don't feel that you know it all, although you need to know it all to get admission. Any volunteering work you've done, that also sends a message of who you are as a person. Any blogging, I mean, some of you guys, I'm sure, blog on fashion. Some of you do travel blogs. Can you take those screenshots and plug that in as well? Of course you can. And that then takes us into the back cover eventually. You might want to share social handles if they are of a certain specific nature. For instance, there are people who want to talk about food in the city, and they've got a little Insta page on that. Put that in. Any awards or any achievements or any competitions you've taken part in, put that in. And of course, don't forget to put your contact in there as well. How do we reach you? Have a professional ID ready for yourself, which may not be same as your personal ID. That gives you a sense of professionalism and kind of also buckets your personal work separate and professional work in a different bucket altogether. So you don't end up mixing stuff. Right from the onset, you're kind of, focused that these communications are, professional communications, and they need to be dealt in a certain language, as opposed to the personal messages, which can be very candid. Depends how you are as a person also, obviously. But it helps organize thoughts. So guys, is this kind of up till now creating a sense of what should you be doing, where should you be going from here, what and where can you improvise, tweak, what all to include, how to start building? And I'd like to take some questions now before I move further. But this particular page, you can take a screenshot if you like and add your own notes to it. Because as a person, you would want to have your own personal touch plugged in. So this is not the only way to deal with it, but yes, this is the least that you should have. So let me just take some questions on before I move further. Any question, guys, before we hit a few more slides before we actually come to the Q&A towards the end? Any queries or anything that you want to like bring out? Or any thoughts that you want to share from your experience?
Please raise your hand.
Yes, please.
Yeah, so I will allow them to unmute.
There are few hands raised.
Hi, so this is Ananya Singh here. Please excuse the background noise. Yeah, so basically, I had a question. So, like I told you that I'm interested in fashion designing. So, obviously, my sewing skills, they are not the best right now, but I do have a lot of good illustrative skills at the moment. And I look forward to learning the skill with the machine and everything. So for example, if I've made like a piece of work, like a physical garment, but it's professionally, it's not best. It's not like up to the professional standards in that sense, but I've actually made it and there's like a whole lot of thought process that's gone behind it. Is that all right to like sort of include in the portfolio?
Okay, so I'm going to be a little nasty to you in a sweet way.
Okay.
There is no one stopping you now to improvise and revise that work and make it to a professional standard. You can always go back to someone who can advise you to get someone on board who can stitch a better version of that. So let's just say your expectations are that it should be of a certain quality, then might as well benchmark that quality and take it to the tailor and say, look, this is where I am right now, and this is where I can take it. Can you help me? With your own ideas, obviously. I mean, it's worth the investment. And it wouldn't take more than a few days to sort that out. So that's one way to look at it. And of course, I would have done that too. If I have realized that it's not of a certain quality, then take that time out to make it worth putting it in the portfolio. Because you're going to be sending a portfolio with this bent of mind, I'm not good enough. And I'm sending and putting all this effort to compile it all together. It'll just be a very suppressive, you'll always be in this you'll always feel this and you'll constantly do this throughout your career. If you have that mindset, it's more about the mindset really. Cool. Hope that helped. Yes.
So may I go?
Yeah, Malvika, yeah, go for it.
I was wondering, like, since I'm interested in animation, is it like I was planning on making a small animated clip at least, like 2D animation, and how am I supposed to add this to the portfolio? The portfolio would be a PDF format, right? So will I be able to add only the storyboarding process of it and layout sketches of it, or and not the animation itself, or like should I find another way to add some other in one way or another?
Okay, so I'm sure you know that you can add in GIFs to your PDFs.
Oh, okay.
So I mean, it's as simple as that, really. Apart from obviously attaching a little USB that are very cheap nowadays,
I didn't think about.
right? So you can always have the full animation, high quality version of that, an HD version of that, plugged into a USB while you're sending it across. If somebody wants to see it, you can also put a web link and embed it into your PDF, and that will take you, that will hyperlink you to the showreel on, let's say, a platform like Behance, or you could put it on YouTube as well, so that that person can simply click on it and access it.
Okay, okay, sure. Thank you.
Okay. Yes, Paki has a question as well. Yes, Paki. Let's hear from you.
Hello, sir.
Hi.
So, like most of my works are vector illustrations. So I
Right.
don't have a diverse work areas, like diverse portfolio.
Okay.
So, will it be a difficult? Like, should I work on something like a diverse portfolio is important?
I mean, it's important, of course, to have diversity.
Yeah.
But if you are good at vector art and that's what you want to do, and you want to
Yeah.
become an expert at vector art, then show a diverse range of story narratives, or let's say styles, or you could have it converted into a book, into a novel, into a little comic strip, to show that you've tried different diverse ways of addressing that same content in different mediums.
Okay. And so one more thing, I don't have rough sketches or something like pen paper work. I have mostly software based work. So it will be like a problem for the universities.
So why don't you make them?
Sir, I'm not good at it. Like I'm not good with sketching and things.
Why can't you spend a week and get good
Yeah,
at it?
yeah. Yeah. That's why I'm asking, should I work on it and should I make it a diverse portfolio? Like whatever I'm interested in, or the software based works are going to work.
I think you need to have sketches. There is no two ways about it.
Okay, sir.
I mean, software is just one of the mediums that you
Yeah.
might be good at. But
Yeah.
like I said, if you can't and you're shying away from a sketching tool, which is traditionally how a creative starts to develop ideas, then
Yes, sir.
you know you are kind of not addressing your fears.
Yeah. So
And
I'm not
you'll
that confident about showing my sketches, but yeah, I should try now.
you've got to do that, so that you enable yourself to come out of that shell. Simply because even in college, there will be a lot of tutoring around how to sketch. But if you get into that practice of, I can't do this, and you already make that a belief system, then there are a lot of other things also that you will start to shy away from. And you don't want to do that at this young age, or at the start of your career, or as a student who is yet to start college. Your sketches need not be the best sketches in the world.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.
They just need to be ideations. Like I said earlier, doodles and sketchy scribbles, even on the walls, are as good as anyone else out there in the world. Okay, so work on that.
Yes, sir.
It's not about your ability, it's more about the fear. Okay, I'll take maybe another couple of questions before we kind of move further. Yes, Nana.
Good evening, sir.
Hi.
So I'm going to be making a portfolio for fashion design. So my question is that I don't have a lot of fashion illustration works like dresses and models and all that, but I do have a lot of work with photography, process, products, sketches, live drawing and all that. So does that work?
You tell me, will that work? How do you feel about it?
Yes, sir. I feel it'll work because I'm going there to learn that and they won't expect me to already do it. So maybe it does, but I'm not sure.
Okay, so to become sure, why don't you send this portfolio to a few colleges and get a feedback?
Sir,
That will give you a surety in the query that you have. That's the best validation tool to get that college review your work. That whether or not this is up to the mark. But from a logical standpoint, if I was applying for fashion design, I would have some amount of fashion in it. Even if I had to model myself and take selfies to put that across, because someone needs to see how badly you want it.
yeah.
So that should be visible to the viewer, and the viewer can actually see it and not even bother asking that, oh, you want to do fashion design or what you want to do. It's like evident from the portfolio, right from page 1, that you want to kill at it.
Yeah.
And even if it takes a few sleepless nights, burning a midnight oil for the next 10 days, put yourself on a fashion challenge for 30 days. Go for it.
Yes, sir.
Put yourself through that challenge and break it down into 4 weeks. In 30 days, you will come back to me and say, I think I'm gonna get it. Now I'm more than sure I'm gonna get it.
Yeah.
So the answer to all these queries is, if it's not there, and your gut is telling you it's not there. So both physically and mentally it's not there. Then what do? We make it come there. Visualize, apply, implement, whatever it takes. Put it in there. And goes for life as well. If you're missing something in life, go after it. Just don't spend too much time missing it. It's a very good space to be in. It feels really good. I'm missing this. Go get it. 30-day challenge for you, Nana.
I'll do it, sir.
Awesome. Okay. Any last questions? If any last questions, just get on the cam and fire your query. Okay, cool. Moving on from here, I think this pretty much gives you a structure of things to come when it comes to portfolio and what it should entail, what it should contain in its totality. But there are certain keywords you can actually pick on, such as making it very clean in a certain aspect, no matter how complex your project is. Keep it sharp. When we talked about narrating a story, yes, have a storyline for each project. And if it is heartwarming, then I guess it will touch the hearts of the viewers. And take inspiration from novel books, advertisements, how they tackle that situation, how they talk about scenarios. And we constantly talked about your journey. Is your portfolio reflecting your true self? That needs to be dealt with. Use fonts which are visible. Don't go for fancy looking fonts, is my usual advice, because it might at that point in time only make sense to you. But when somebody reads it and struggles to actually understand what you're trying to convey. It's almost like there's a brand or a startup. It has a new logo and it has a type font and you can't even pronounce it. It's a struggle. Or it's too cursive, too flary. So find a balance. Make others look at it and say, are you able to comprehend this, read this? If not, rework it. And being clutter-free certainly adds a sense of balance to your work, because you're not trying to ram everything into that one page. You're being selective. That shows the ability to process what is priority, what is not so priority, right? Of course, needless to say, that also covers only the best of images, well post-produced images, color-corrected images that go in there. Don't just take a picture and plug it in. If you need to color correct it, crop it, resize it, do that. Now in this image, you can see down below the process of making these geometric items. It also shows iterations and variations of the form and how it's being sculpted. Maybe it has a functional value. Bring that process journey out every single project. And like we said, clutter-free, that takes us to the next point, which is breathing space. If you look at this image out here on the top, there's a lot of breathing space. It helps create focal points in an image or an art composition. Where do you want the viewer to look? Where do you want the eyeballs to actually follow through? So give it space. It deserves space. Your work deserves that focus. Be pretty selective with colors as well. You don't necessarily need to add all the colors in there. Even if it is pop art, find a palette for yourself. For each project, there is a palette. It's just like you want to get a dress made, but it's not like you put in all the colors in there. You're selective, right? You're gonna have maybe one or two primary colors and then embellish it with other little contrasts. Again, be selective around it. And then embellishments, of course, details, like if you want to sort of talk about details, certain lines, text and paras being formulated on one side, little details, sketchy scribbles incorporated into your project work, and all little supporting embellishments that add value to your project template. Last few things I want to touch upon is, experiment with your layouts. Never be happy with that. Yes, you'll get to a stage where you'll have to close it, but experiment with your layouts as much as possible. And that includes the placement of images as well. And then once you've done one page, replicate it for the rest of the pages or the rest of the projects as well, because that will create a consistent entire story across all different projects. There'll be a consistent way of the eyes starting from one page to the last page, keeping it continuous and easily readable. You've got to also explore the balance in image and text. How do you overlay those two things? How do you play with certain numerics and fonts that complement it? Where do you need to be bold? Where do you need to use a certain font size? You're going to explore that. There is no right answer to it. But it'll be answered when you just feel this is just right. I think I have reached that point. What kind of captions you want to use on the images is also very important, because that kind of creates a certain persona, a certain vibe of your portfolio. Of course, you've got to be playful with your journey. There's a certain style we all have, and we explore, we experiment. Sometimes we find a signature style within us. If there is none right now, that's okay. That's totally fine. But your portfolio is your visual journey. So if you don't play with moods and emotions and expressions through these colors and the palettes, you can't create a sensibility, you can't create a vibe. And that's what you're looking at, creating a vibe that talks about you as a person or your work, most importantly. Now, this particular image has more rounded corners, more organic flow, with respect to the layout. But it's quite structured even then. When you talk about process, you're talking about evolution from where you started to where you got to. So if you started with a little sketch and you got to a final render or a finished colored drawing or a digital artwork, please plug that in. And all the explorations and doodles while you are doing that. Also be informative. Now, your portfolio is just not a visual artwork. It has to be supported by some sort of information. You can use infographics as well, but it needs to be supported by some information that talks about your project. So the kind of language or grammar or vocabulary that you choose to implement will also be a very, very important element of your expression, of your vibe that we were talking about earlier. Is it free flowing? Is it quite tightened and rigid and professional? Or is it classy? Or you're talking in a very colloquial way? How do you want to talk and converse with your audience is where your vocabulary will come into play. How you craft your sentences. And of course, you can merge it with little doodles and sketches every now and then. That adds to the contrast variation to the pages. Of course, once you've come to certain projects where you've created a final piece of work, then photograph it really well. Your cell phones are enough to do that, by the way. In good lighting, you will get good results. You don't need a very high-end camera. And also give it a lot of space, give it a lot of value, give it a lot of attention. Let it rule the page. Let it be the hero of the composition. Celebrate it. And of course, your resume, your CV, your bio, data can be fun as well. It need not be a Word file. You can craft it with your images of project images and thumbnails. You can almost be conversing personally to the audience. Hello, this is my portfolio. Right? You don't have to be literal about things. You can be quirky. You can be crafty. You can be funny. Yes, it needs to be informative, clean, and comprehensible. Now, two places that some of you guys might be already aware of, where you can build your digital portfolio, which also helps you envision and try out and explore different layouts, is Behance and Corofloat. I've just put them in there so that for those who have never heard of them or who are coming from a background which is non-design or non-art, have a look on these two portfolio websites. It'll give you a sense of what's happening in the industry, how other designers and artists are addressing their projects, how do they express their creativity, how do they create their layouts. They're two gold mines of creative data. That kind of brings me to the end of this session. You can connect with me personally on my Insta. I've just left it there. It's called the Speculative Monk. I'll try answer DMs as much as I can. It's a new venture. But yes, will be very speculative and a lot of provocations that come along with it. So happy to help there. And that takes me to any Q&As. But for that, we'll take a 2-minute break. We'll take a little time just to kind of put questions down from our head. I'll get a little breather as well. I'll just calm my little throat. And let's be back in a couple of minutes to the Q&A. I hope that's great with you guys. And yeah, 2 minutes. We'll be back.
Well, so hello all. I hope you all have enjoyed the session, what we have right now, where we are moving from Q&A session right now. So meanwhile, you can quickly write your question in a chat box. Mukesh sir, did you disable the chat? Could you please enable to chat once again?
Yes, done.
I see many of the students is still taking interest, and it was really wonderful the way sir has explained you the portfolio, and I understand your current requirement. Keeping those in mind also, we will continue your sessions from tomorrow 12 o'clock onwards about the portfolio. So this is the start for your portfolio class. Okay, so I would like to introduce now ma'am. She is here right now. Initially I was talking to Sangyogita ma'am, if you remember. So ma'am is also here now. She's a campus director, and I told you I did my initial work in Aditya Birla. So ma'am is very, very senior there. When I've joined, so I get to know a lot about the ma'am. So once again, I would like to welcome ma'am and Tomar sir. So over to you, Mukesh sir. Could you please pass on to help desk to introduce ma'am, so that we can continue the session? And all of you are, meanwhile, you are writing a question in the chat box is good. And I know you all are at home. So can you please, Nana, Nitya, Ananya, Nitya, can you guys come? I can see few of you here. Can come with your video. So we would love to see you. Yeah, I know. I mean, your classes are over now after the exams. I have taken a lot of class until your NIFT exam. So it's a kind of official first session after the NIFT exam. So you are not officially ready for this.
Yeah.
And a lot of things happen in between. I remember about Ridhma, about your exam also, many of you. Hey, whatever problem you have faced, could you guys please share your problems later, not in this session? I got to know about Ridhma through Govind sir, and there are many of your students. Even I hope Naina will not mind. She was also crying before submission. So this year exam, many students cried. Like it was like a game from last 10 days. Every day there is some notification, there's some new things. So there's a very much new challenges the organization has faced. So I would love to know all your problems are. Many of are already in contact. So I will over to ma'am now. Mukesh sir, are you ready? Well, so
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
somehow it's echoing. Please check. Yeah. Meanwhile, I see all of you have already, right? No, yeah. Yes, yes. There's a lot of question. I know you all have to make the portfolios. So, but I don't want to delay this session. So that is what the reason is.
Over to you, Shruti.
To introduce our next speaker, Dr. Sayangita Chanda is a academician, researcher, industry professional, and entrepreneur, alumni of MS University, Baroda. She's completed her PhD on anthropometry and standardization of measurements for men from SNDT Mumbai, pattern making for men from London School of Fashion, finance for non-finance from XLRI Jamshedpur. She carries 2 decades of diverse industry experience, has created design frameworks for brands like Alan Solly, Peter England, Indigo Nation, Scullers, to name a few. She headed the School of Fashion, Styling and Textiles at Pearl Academy and was also the head of School of Fashion at UID Ahmedabad. She straddles between academics and industry with equal passion. Dr. Sayangita is also an avid reader, a cynophile, enthusiastic swimmer, passionate about baking, and also very passionate about outdoors. Over to you, ma'am. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much, Shruti. I put my video off. I think I'm having an unstable network. Can you all hear me? Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Thanks, Krishna. Again, thank you so much for calling me to the session. And thank you, Anupam, for a really exciting session. I mean, if I was a student, I'd be asking you 100 questions, but that I can ask you in person when I meet you on campus. But having said that, thank you, guys. You've been a great audience. Great questions have been coming. Lots of you have been asking questions on fashion. And I've been holding myself back from answering. Anupam is in charge of this workshop. But having said that, I think it's amazing that you all have such interesting questions to ask somebody, and Anupam is the right guy to answer you. I just want to say that I'm from Pearl Academy, as is Anupam and is Lakshmi, and Krishna has been really kind to call us this session. We are 28 years old, so our entire institution is 28 years old. We have 2 campuses in Delhi, one in Mumbai, one in Jaipur, one in Bangalore. Bangalore campus is our latest campus. So it's really exciting that we have this fantastic spanking new campus right at the heart of Bangalore. I would suggest that each one of you, if you're in Bangalore, please come and visit the campus and meet people like Anupam in person. Because I think when you meet them in person, you walk around the campus, you see the amazing facilities that we have. I think